Waiters, what dating disasters have you witnessed? Story 1. I was a waiter at a very famous, upscale restaurant, and a gentleman approached the maitre d' requesting someone take pictures of him proposing to his girlfriend. Since I was the closest a-hole to the maitre d', I was tasked with performing this duty. After stalking the table for a solid hour, the moment was inevitably approaching. I set up at an angle she couldn't see me, and when he busted out the ring, I started taking as many pictures as I could. Anyone who has tried to capture a once-in-a-lifetime moment on camera knows that you're not really watching what's going on, you're just trying to frame the moment. After about 20 to 30 pictures, I slowly realized that she was declining the proposal, and the scene was quickly degenerating into a 5-alarm dumpster fire. However, I was far enough away that I couldn't hear what was being said and couldn't be sure of what was transpiring, so I continued taking pictures just in case. Finally, I stepped back and watched the scene unfold in reality, as she stormed out of the restaurant in embarrassment, and he scrambled to pay the bill and chase after her. He'd requested that I use my phone and send the best pictures to him. Needless to say, he never approached us for the pictures, and I have about 100 plus pictures of a wedding proposal gone wrong somewhere deep in my iCloud photo bank. Story 2. I worked at a bar in a hotel for 5 years. I had a table come down from their hotel room and sit at one of my pub tables for dinner. From the moment they sat down, you could tell the wife was furious about something. She was unbelievably pleasant toward me, but did not say a single word to the man at the table. I get their drinks and then their orders. He ordered steak, and she ordered the sauciest pasta dish we had on the menu. About 20 minutes later, the wife still hadn't said a word to the man since they sat down. Their food was done and my food runner set it on the table. Right as I was about to walk over to see if they needed anything else, I saw the woman stand up, say, "Go frick yourself, John," as she picked up the plate of pasta and dumped it all over his head and down into his lap. Then she very calmly walked out of the bar and back up to her hotel room. I spent a few minutes helping the man clean up and got my manager to come handle the situation from there, as it was way above my pay grade at that point. Later in the night, the woman came back to the bar without the man and we talked for a while. Turns out he admitted to cheating on her right before their dinner reservation. I never saw either of them again. Story 3. This was probably about 4 years ago, in a joint called the Esquire Tavern on the Riverwalk. We had a street entrance as well as a river entrance, but from the river you had to walk up a really narrow metal staircase to our balcony. It barely had enough room for 5 small tables, including one that was tucked in a corner that made it hard to see from below. Anyways, it was a slow summer lunch, so I was doubling as a hostess, and this guy comes up from the river entrance and asks for a spot on the patio, specifically the hidden cramped one. "No problem, sir," I say, and I get him set up. We chat for a bit, I take his order, bring it out, and go about my business, which was to passively watch him through the window because he was my only table and I wanted to keep an eye on him. I started to notice him suddenly ducking his head, as if he's trying not to be seen from the river level by someone. I remember pointing it out to another coworker, who was just as curious as I was. Then we heard a woman scream, "There you are, Marcos, you piece of shit!" I could hear the staircase shuddering as someone was clearly stomping their way up it, and my coworker astutely dipped out to find the manager. The lady started laying into this dude, and all I could make out was something about ditching her, all the while he's just ignoring her and calmly eating his buffalo burger, which made her snap. She slapped the shit out of this dude, telling him to freaking acknowledge me, and he simply got up, walked around her, and came inside to sit at the bar. She then sits down and starts eating this poor man's meal like nothing is wrong. By this point, though, the manager is here and he goes outside and starts trying to kick her off the premises while I go talk to Marcos and figure out what's what. The woman was his wife, and they had come downtown for lunch. She had a nasty habit of getting super effed up and belligerent, which always ended up ruining their plans, including a wedding reception a few months prior. She refused to go get help, insisting that she'd keep her drinking to a minimum, and this was their first vacation since that incident. They had stopped at a brunch place around the corner, and she proceeded to have 4 old fashions back to back. When she was ordering her 4th drink, he told her that she was already out of control, and that if she kept drinking he was going to close the tab and go eat lunch somewhere else, and that he'd meet her back at the hotel. She told him he was chicken shit and that he wasn't going anywhere. So he got up, paid their bill, and walked out. I guess she thought he was putting up a front and was actually waiting outside for her, then realized he wasn't. She started running up and down the river looking for him. He just wanted to finish his burger in peace before dealing with her craziness. In the end, we had her ejected from the premises, and my manager made him another burger on the house. A year or so later, we saw him at the bar with a different woman. He divorced his wife and couldn't look happier. Story 4. I was bartender at a country club in college, and I watched a woman curse her husband out at their table because the husband kept flirting with the waitress. She got really loud and walked out. Keep in mind this was a nice restaurant at an upscale country club. The waitress felt it was all her fault, but she told me the guy had been coming in there often and tipping her 100% of the bill every time. Story 5. Guy 1 and girlfriend are fondling each other at my bar. Guy 2 joins them at the bar and they quickly separate and behave. The three go off into the casino but stop back for drinks a few times. Early AM, Guy 2 does a shot and walks away. I can tell he isn't happy. He comes back and says he has a couple of hours to kill before his plane leaves. We get to chatting and he tells me he just broke up with his GF as suspects she snuck up to the room and nailed his best friend when he couldn't find either of them for an hour. I ask if it was Guy 1 and girlfriend, he confirms it, and I let him know he is making the right choice as they were making out at the bar before he came down. He thanks me for confirming, leaves a huge tip, and lets me know what is happening in case there is any confusion with the hotel. An hour or so later, Guy 1 and girlfriend are at the bar whispering and arguing. I casually ask if everything is okay. They say they are locked out of their room and can't find their friend who paid for the room. They tried to charge the bill to the room too, but my computer showed the room was empty. I told them Guy 2 had been in earlier but checked out and his flight was already in the air. Then I watched the meltdown. Guy 2 had paid for his BFF and girlfriend to spend a week in Vegas with him. They cheated and got caught. He checked out and flew home, and they had nowhere to stay for the week and no money for even basic food. Their luggage had been packed and left in the baggage hold. They did everything they could to get out of paying for their drinks as they were hella expensive, left no tip, and didn't have a place to sleep or even change clothing at 5 a.m. Story 6. I used to bartend at a Yard House in the before times. Yard House is a corporate place that's basically a nicer sports bar with a ton of beer on tap with stupid, giant novelty glasses. I had a couple at the bar during happy hour drinking from one of the big glasses, and they ordered some onion rings that were half price. He jokingly proposed with an onion ring, and she started laughing and jokingly said yes. Then he busted out an actual ring. She wasn't laughing anymore. Story 7. This happened when I was around 18 or so. I am mostly Native American. This is an important factor to the story. A guy and his date get sat in my section, and he immediately asked to speak to my manager. This was before I even took the drink order, so I was perplexed but went and grabbed him right away. The dude then asked my manager for a nice white server instead, right in front of me, while giving me a rather disgusted scowl. His date was so horrified she stood up and said, "Oh hell no. That racist shit don't work with me, honey. You can sit me at the bar, sweetheart, this date is over." The manager made the man leave and comped his date's food. She left the manager $100 tip for me with a note that said, "You are beautiful and worthy of respect. Always remember that." Her date was a disaster, but she made my night. Story 8. I was bartending at a restaurant in San Francisco. This guy came in and ordered a vodka martini. He downed it and ordered another. Halfway through his third, he called his wife and asked for a divorce. After he hung up, we talked about the Red Sox. I'm from Boston.